Welcome back to the Temple of Technology. I am your host, Scott James Magner, the idiot with a microphone. It's time for another episode of So Here's the Deal, the RS Entertainment webcast where I explore my vast media collection and talk about what each piece means to me and my friends. In this episode, we're continuing our David Lynch Film Festival with another episode of Twin Peaks Season 2. Welcome back to the collaboration room, everyone, for our next entry in the David Lynch Film Festival, which I will put up on stream here. David Lynch Film Festival, where we talk about Twin Peaks Season 2, Coma. Hello, Julie. How are you today?
I'm fine. I am thematically wearing lipstick because one of the things I noticed about this episode was something I had forgotten about, but I remembered as soon as I saw it, was how intense and orange all the women's lipstick is during this season. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Can't unsee it. Right on. I, of course, am wearing a sweater because I am a huge slacker.
People are wearing a lot of sweaters in this episode too.
They do.
It's like it's the tail end of that 90s, or sorry, the 80s sweater thing. Like, it's wild watching TV and movies from the 80s. It's like people are always wearing these giant, bulky pullover sweaters. And it's like, I don't remember the 80s being that cold.
Yeah. Well, especially up here in the Northwest. We had Chernobyl.
I mean, global warming is a thing, but still.
We did have, in the 90s, we had a minor nuclear winter because of the Chernobyl disaster. Now, I was living in Arizona for the first couple of years of that, but even that first year or so, definitely when I was finishing up high school, it was colder than it was before. And it was definitely a small scale effect of Anthropocene climate change, which 35 years later, people are saying never happened. Well, it fucking happened. I was there, and so were you. But it's also, it's a Saturday in February, which is typically a time when we're geared up to go to a convention that we no longer attend. So it's a good time for us to talk about Coma, because it's a fantastic episode. This is a David Lynch episode again, but it is more importantly, it is I just lost it. I lost my narrative thread. But Wikipedia will get me back on track. It is written by Harley Payton, but directed by David Lynch. So this is the first one of these that we're encountering in our David Lynch Film Festival, because he has been a co-writer on almost everything that he's put out to this date. So this is him being a director, being an author, an artiste, auteur. Auteur is the word that I want. Big Poitloiten word. This episode released October 6th, 1990. It had a 14.4 share, which is 5 million, at 14.4 US viewers, which is 5 million fewer viewers than tuned in to the premiere of this episode. And this is a trend which will continue for some time. It does not get noticeably better until the 7th episode of the season, which was a David Lynch Mark Frost joint. And I think that was because that was in November and there wasn't as much summer stuff going on. But here we are back in the faraway time of October 6th, 1990. I believe, Julie, we want to talk about your relationship to this episode. How was things back in the viewing pod in 1990?
I remember that I seem to remember us, just kind of generally speaking, enjoying season 2 until kind of late in season two. Like I seem to remember we were just kind of going along with it. I do know that this episode has one of those extreme David Lynchian scenes, and everybody kind of reacted to that, the creamed corn scene.
Yeah.
So everybody definitely thought that was agreeably David Lynchy. Um, it also has Audrey Horne in a slip and a vacuuming cowgirl, so there's that. Um, so I think in general we were pretty pleased with this episode. Um, it's also got in the opening scene where Dale Cooper is talking to Albert, it's got some guys who are clearly dressed like they're part of a barbershop quartet, an old-timey
Yeah.
barbershop quartet. And you can hear like just a hint of barbershop quartet, vocalizations in the soundtrack. But the men they show are not singing, they are smoking. So,
Yeah, that struck me too. And we'll talk more about that breakfast scene in our first impressions.
Diane, in the overview, we should talk about the specific version of the media, any alternate versions, and our specific relationship to the piece. We should also discuss production details, related trivia, and if available, a Wikipedia summary.
All right, Julie, take us
Oh,
away.
okay. Um, I thought you were going to count down, actually.
Well, I'm sorry. You go 5, 4, 3, and then 2 and 1 are silent.
Okay.
I'll edit this part out. Or actually, I'll probably leave it in
Okay.
because it's hilarious. It's us trying to be not idiots with microphones, but
Yeah, although
highfalutin professional podcasters.
we do speaking good
We are words
people
gooders.
thing.
We are words good people.
We speak words. All right. Um, the events of this episode. During their breakfast together at the Great Northern Hotel, Dale Cooper explains to a visibly uninterested Albert Rosenfield Buddhist Tibetan history and traditions. Albert then proceeds to update Cooper over the progress made on their investigation during his absence, including that Jacques Renault was not strangled, but smothered with a pillow, that the mill was definitely arson, and that Leah Johnson is the most likely suspect, and that Ronette Pulaski woke up from her coma, but has not spoken yet. Albert then informs a visibly shocked Cooper that his former partner, Wyndham Earle, has escaped the psychiatric hospital in which he was institutionalized. An Asian man observes them intently the whole time, with, ominous music so you know to pay attention to it.
That part's not in
Donna
Wikipedia,
Hay-
but yes, very ominous music.
Donna Hayward has taken over Laura's community service at the Meals on Wheels. She serves a tray of food to bedridden Mrs. Tremond, who complains about the presence of creamed corn in her tray. The corn disappears from the tray and reappears in the hands of a little boy, whom the woman refers to as her grandson, who is studying magic. When Donna asks if she knew Laura Palmer, Mrs. Tremond denies it, but she suggests asking her neighbor, Mr. Smith, since he does not answer the door. Donna leaves a message. Agent Cooper and Sheriff Truman are in Ronette Pulaski's hospital room interrogating her. When shown a portrait of Leo Johnson, she shakes her head, but while seeing a portrait of Bob, she convulses violently, knocks over her IV. Wondering whether to burn the real ledger or the fake one, redacted by Josie, Ben Horne and his brother Jerry end up not burning either one, deciding to toast marshmallows instead. In the Double R Diner, Deputy Andy Brennan tries to tape a poster of Bob to the door. After Norma Jennings scolds her for spitting her chewing gum on the counter, the log lady tells Major Briggs that her log told her, oh, her log told her to tell him to deliver the message, to which the major replies that he understands. At the sheriff's office, Andy reports to Lucy that he was diagnosed as sterile when applying for a donation to the Coma sperm bank and asks how she can be having a child. Sheriff Truman signs in Hank Jennings and tells him to stay clean. When Hank leaves, Truman tells Cooper that he used to be one of the best bookhouse boys. Ben Horn calls in and reports that his daughter Audrey has been missing for 2 days. Jerry explains to Ben that Catherine Martell did not sign her policy, fearing that Josie would be the beneficiary. As they decide to call the Icelandic investment group, Leland Palmer enters the room. When Einar, the investor, tells them that Leland already called him to tell him about the fire, Ben and Jerry calm him down. Annoyed, Ben tells Leland to concentrate on his tax returns. Leland, having spotted a poster of Bob, says that he knows him as the man who lived next door to his grandfather's summer house when he was a child, and leaves to report it to the sheriff. At the hospital, Dr. Hayward shows to a shocked Shelley Johnson her husband Leo, telling her that his brain may be damaged. At One-Eyed Jack's, Audrey Horne takes the place of the girls serving Emery Battis, the manager of the Horne department store, and threatens him into giving her information. Emery admits that Audrey's father, Ben Horne, is the owner of the brothel, and that Emery recruited Laura Palmer and Renette Pulaski for the brothel from their jobs at the perfume counter. He tells her that Laura was fired from the brothel for using drugs, but Ben knew she was there and made it his business to entertain all the girls. Finally, Emery says that Laura knew that Ben was the owner of the place and that she always got her way, just like Audrey. In Major Briggs' car, Bobby Briggs and Shelley talk about their relationship. Bobby tells her that they can get up to $5,000 a month of disability pay if Leo is at home. Major Briggs visits Cooper, who is recording a tape for Diane in his room at the Great Northern Hotel. Briggs tells him that there is a message for him and explains that part of his job is maintenance of deep space monitors aimed at distant galaxies. The message, written in clear English, is, "The owls are not what they seem," and it arrived on the night in which Cooper was shot. When Cooper asks Briggs how he knew that the message was for him, Briggs shows him another message from the same night, the word Cooper repeated. At the Haywards' house, Donna, James Hurley, and Maddie Ferguson are recording a song called Just You. Noticing Maddie and James looking at each other, Donna rushes away from the room, unnerved, while James tries to console her. A call from Harold Smith arrives. In the living room, Maddie has a vision of Bob coming at her over the couch. When she screams, James and Donna reach her, and nothing is in the room. At the Great Northern, Cooper has a dream, which includes part of his conversation with the giant and of Renette's nightmare. He is awakened by the phone. When he answers, Audrey Horne asks him why he's not there and tells him that she's in trouble. Their conversation is interrupted by Emery Battis and Blackie O'Reilly. Blackie tells Audrey, "Miss Horne, you don't know what trouble is. Not by a long shot."
Yeah.
And that's the end.
That was... So, unlike most of our Wikipedia summaries, this one was a bit more... Some more care was shown by the Wikipedia editor for this one. It hews a lot closer to the one on the Twin Peaks Wiki, our one source of truth, and certainly better than the thumbnail that they have on the season 2 episodes page. So I thought I was gonna pop in and read one of those, but Julie did such a fantastic job with that one that we could just leave that as is and then discuss it and what it reveals to us, because as a more succinct summary than we usually get, that one really lays out a lot of what's going on in this episode, more so even that when we go check in with the log lady in a little bit, the mysteries that she's going to reveal to us that we'll go over in our expanded coverage. I mentioned that this was written by Harley Payton, directed by David Lynch. This is the third episode that David has directed, and he is going to do 2 more here in season 2, but he'll be a producer on everything and hands-on on everything. He's not doing a lot of other stuff during this process. Peyton wrote or co-wrote 10 episodes of the original series overall, so she is definitely one of the serious contributors to Twin Peaks, and as we get more Peyton episodes, we'll talk more about that. It's certainly a name that I see a lot more when I'm looking at television shows from the 90s. So there's a big career outside of Twin Peaks for that. I mentioned the ratings drop coming in. This is the kiss of death right here. That 5 million person drop, and this is what eventually led to cancellation. It's unfortunate because this episode is better than the one before it. It's just that how that one hit and how it popped through was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that a huge part of that is that whole "Who Killed Laura Palmer" hype. It was this growing and growing and growing hype, and so there was the end of the last season, and there were probably a lot of people who tuned in to the season 2 opener with that expectation. Oh, now they're going to show us who killed Laura Palmer, and instead it's more David Lynch being David Lynch, and so.
Dale Cooper even says those lines. I'm going to break down exactly how Laura Palmer was killed, and we all can. Yes, let's do that. It's like, oh, come on, Dave. What do you got for us? Talk about Mrs. Tremont, played by the inestimable Frances Bay. Frances Bay is one of our frequent collaborators for David Lynch. And we first saw her way back in Blue Velvet, but we also saw her in a bit part in Wild at Heart. She will go on to do a little bit more of Twin Peaks, but not a lot more with David Lynch overall. Not quite a frequent collaborator, but did you notice who Mrs. Tremont's grandson is?
David Lynch Jr. Well,
It is
David Lynch's son.
Austin Jack Lynch, David Lynch's son by his second wife, Mary, and they were also divorced by this time. And so Dave is a freewheeling guy. And it's important to note that even though his family is still involved in production and stuff's going on, he's a very single human. And this will inform a lot of how Shelley Johnson is written for the rest of season 2, because he had a bit of a crush on Machen Atmic, which, any human should. She's a singularly beautiful person. I don't know how she is in real life. But as she was presented in season 2, she was just knockout stunning. You could see why people are willing to commit so many crimes to hang out with her, even though she's kind of a ditz. She gets better.
Yeah, actually, speaking of having crushes, one of the things we've talked about a little bit last season, but I think it really informs the plotting of basically Audrey in this season, is that originally some of the idea was that she and Cooper were going to have a relationship, and it was Kyle MacLachlan who was like, no, she's only supposed to be 18. She's too young for Cooper.
And Kyle MacLachlan was dating Laura Flynn Boyle at the time, who absolutely objected to that process.
Yeah, and I actually think that Kyle was right about that. But it does mean that Audrey's story this entire season feels a little like it struggles to get going.
Yeah, this is me indicating that we're at sea. We're going to go this way or that way, depending on who's writing and who's directing. Yeah. And Audrey, fairly well damseled in this episode, and we're definitely going to go into that in our expanded coverage. But she is on the sideline, so much so that when Ben Horne brings up, "Hey, my daughter's missing," people go, "Oh yeah, your daughter's missing, huh? That's odd." And in our next episode, we'll talk about the repercussions of that extreme parental wackiness. But
the fact that Ben Horne is like the worst dad ever.
He is the worst dad ever.
Did you notice that when he calls to when he calls the sheriff's office to tell them that Audrey's missing, he's drinking a glass of red wine
Yeah.
in what has until this moment looked like the middle of a regular workday. And it probably is, actually, because Ben Horn sucks. But but I was just kind of like, he's just drinking, it's like, oh, by the way, my daughter's missing. Let me have some wine.
And if I recall correctly, that scene happens pretty much immediately after Audrey is torturing her boss at Horn's department store up at One Eye Jack's, right? Or immediately before, immediately after. And so the contrast between my daughter's missing and my daughter is kicking ass are pretty extreme as we go through that. But just I have a lot to talk about One Eye Jack's this episode because there's so much stuff going on up there that I do not like. And when I say do not like, I mean it's great gripping fucking television. It's fantastic. But as an adult human, my first impression for that stuff is, ooh, this is interesting. This is interesting. Well, I haven't seen this before. And as a me now, when I look at those scenes, it's really jarring to me. Not in a bad way. It has its intended effect, I think, as art in what it's doing in the juxtaposition between life in Twin Peaks and life up in the weird fantasy land of One Eye Jack's. But yeah, this episode was pretty wacky all the way around. Again, I think it's a much better episode. But we should go on to check in with our friend, the Log Lady. Are you okay with that? Or do you have more to talk about? Any particular wacky trivia that you recall about this episode that we haven't talked about in our wacky trivia section here?
Yeah, actually, the fact that little kid who looks just like David Lynch is in fact David Lynch's son.
Yeah.
That was my wacky trivia.
And you even dressed him that way. I mean, I thought really hard about putting a picture of Austin Jack Lynch where Dave is next to us here because he does look that severe. And I've got Austin Jack Lynch's IMDb page up here, believe it or not. And he was a producer on Inland Empire, which was a David Lynch movie that we'll get to much later and on through this. He was born in 1982. He is, I think this is his only Twin Peaks appearance. Yeah, it's his only Twin Peaks appearance. But it's memorable. It's one of those things that just sticks at you because he's dressed up black tie. You know, this is a weird way to be in the middle of the day, and then all of a sudden cream corn. So, all right. That is that's it for now. And let's go on, check in with the Log Lady, and then I will see you all back here for first impressions.
As above, so below. The human being finds himself, or herself, in the middle. There is as much space outside the human, proportionately, as inside. Stars, moons, and planets remind us of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Is there a bigger being walking with all the stars within? Does our thinking affect what goes on outside us and what goes on inside us? I think it does. Where does creamed corn figure into the workings of the universe? What really is creamed corn? Is it a symbol for something else?
Diane, in first impressions, we should talk about, well, our first impressions on viewing the piece, introduce plot summaries or trailers, and engage in general chit-chat about the individual episode or the movie.
So that was for our viewers at home who are not actually viewing. We're going to go over what the Log Lady had to say to us just now.
All right. As above, so below. The human being finds himself or herself in the middle. There is as much space outside the human, proportionately, as inside. Stars, moons, and planets remind us of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Is there a bigger being walking with all the stars within? Does our thinking affect what goes on outside us and what goes on inside us? I think it does. Where does creamed corn figure into the workings of the universe? What really is creamed corn? Is it a symbol for something else?
Which we know, since these were written and recorded 3 years after the show was canceled. That's David Lynch bonking us on the head, saying, pay attention to the cream corn.
The creamed corn is important.
Now, whether that's because, it's his son holding the cream corn in his cupped hands, or because it's just more wackiness for Margaret Lanterman. But I thought that when I think of Log Lady intros and when I think of season 2 episodes, I think of Coma. I really do, because it is such, for me, it's such great Lynchian cinema. And when I watched this for the first time, it was just boom, okay, yeah, all right, this is why I've been waiting to watch season 2. I was waiting for this episode to see this sort of thing, because it was very Blue Velvet. It was very Wild at Heart. It was very, very David Lynch overall. And that's what kept me watching. Now, mind you, there's a lot more episodes in this season I don't care for. But, and critics have fairly savaged this episode as being one of the worst ones that David Lynch directed. And I just don't know what they were talking about. I think a lot of those critical reviews were being driven by Roger Ebert's feelings on Twin Peaks at the time, and established media critics not liking what David Lynch was doing, because they were all wrong. Shaking my impotent fists.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were wrong. But I mean, somewhat one of the problems is that if you're truly breaking new ground, a lot of the time people will not always get what you're doing. And I think with the Mrs. Tremont scene is one of the all-time classic David Lynch scenes, I think. And I had forgotten where it occurs, actually. Like I had forgotten, I knew it was in there, but I couldn't have told you what episode it was a part of. What actually a couple of points with the Wikipedia entrance, even though it was more accurate than they usually are, I feel like when it says, well, she objects to the creamed corn, is sort of not doing justice to her full reaction, where she says, I specifically told them no creamed corn. But it doesn't seem like she's really bothered by the creamed corn. She's just, I don't know, interested in it. I mean, everything about her character is so intriguing, I think.
Yeah.
And she delivers everything in that kind of David Lynch has an archetype or a person trope that recurs over and over, which is like the maybe deranged prophet or deranged oracle, where it's somebody who says things that are actually, I mean, obviously the Log Lady is probably the most coherent example of that, but I think Mrs. Tremont is another one because, when she opens it, it's like she says, they used to bring me hospital food, which is, hearkening back to last episode with the most disgusting hospital food ever in the history of hospital food, as possibly a clue of some kind of supernatural evil present. She also asks Donna, who are you? In one of those ways that seems like it's meant to, mean more than just like, who are you? You're not my regular girl. And then when when she asks, did you know Laura? Mrs. Tremont says, she's dead. Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. Every single thing she does seems like it is fraught with significance. And And I also think that it's kind of interesting because when she says her grandson is studying magic, I think that we're not meant to believe that it's sleight of hand magic. I think we're meant to believe that it's
He's,
real magic.
yeah, kid's a
He's
sorcerer.
studying real magic.
Yeah, Mrs. Tremont could well be Aunt Fran from Blue Velvet, right? She could be that what happens after the craziness of brushing against the darkness in that crazy small town moves forward into the horrible, nasty darkness that lives outside of Twin Peaks in the woods. I have no doubt whatsoever that that kid was actually performing magic, especially since we never see him again. He might not even exist, right? He might be a spirit from the other world. He could be a
Don't
White
we
Lodge angel. I know we don't see him
Don't we
again.
see him again, like with a wearing a mask?
I think we see
Like,
someone
like,
wearing a
like
mask, but I don't think we
okay,
see. I don't think we see the grandson, who is unnamed
okay.
at this point. He's just that's my grandson. And then she looks over, and then there's a kid there, and that kid wasn't there when she came into the room. At least I don't think she was. He was.
I mean, she didn't. We didn't notice him.
Yeah, focus wasn't pulled on it until green corn. And the thing about the hospital food, yeah, absolutely. So now you're feeding me real food instead of this garbage that's designed to sap my spirit. I've got some mojo now, and that mojo results in the more people fighting against the darkness. I love the owls reference going on here in this, and that's almost more of an expanded coverage thing because it's so important. But the bits about Major Garland, right? Well, in our last episode we talked about Major Garland's relationship with Bobby and how there's a glimmer of hope for Bobby in that his father actually loves him and his father wants him to succeed, and Bobby is touched by this human connection, literal human connection, as they shake hands, that might save him if he's willing to embrace the light instead of the darkness. And then in this episode we got crazy wahoo David Lynch Major Garland Briggs. It was like, you do what? Your job is what? What happened? And it's like, you got a telegram from outer space, and you're showing us on the stream. It's like, what fucking show is this now? Because we are now expanding Twin Peaks dramatically into a larger universe that is not about Laura Palmer, and I believe that was intentional on both the part of Harley Payton and on David Lynch to flex their muscles and say, hey, this show is important. Look at the stories we can tell that are happening here. Is why this episode hits so well for me, is because it is actively trying to expand the show. Again, we have a whole section called expanded coverage, but my first impression on watching this, and definitely on watching it this week, is this episode is important, and it's just a shame to me that other people in the 1990s didn't think this, especially other people who had money. If I had been watching this live in 1990 instead of gaming and drinking, I would be really pissed that the show got canceled after I'd seen this live on television. I really would.
Yeah, what's funny though is that by the time I knew it was canceled, it had kind of entered a little bit of the doldrums, I think.
Yeah, that's the weird Annie Blackburn stuff, and
yeah, so I think that I don't know, my estimation at the time was just it's David Lynch. It was never really meant to be that long. um, you know, and I think that it's interesting because when he continued to expand the sort of the Twin Peaks mystical universe with Fire Walk with Me and especially Twin Peaks: The Return, I feel like it was much better received than it was with Twin Peaks season 2. Like with Twin Peaks season 2, I think that there might have been, because I do remember having a little bit of debate about did we like the more supernatural direction? And I was a little uncertain about it. Like, partly because, I like David Lynch for surrealism, not necessarily, surrealism is different from fantasy. So
if Fire Walk with Me had been Twin Peaks season 1, And I'm talking the whole deal, right? With the extra bits in. If that had been Twin Peaks season 1, even on a small screen, and then we come into Dale Cooper chasing the murders and whatnot, I think the show might still be on the air. I honestly do. It'd be like Star Trek or Law and Order, right? It'd be one of those shows that had such a strong opening and got that rich mythology squared in so fast that you couldn't shake it from the zeitgeist. But it didn't, right? That was a coda. But it's a real story of Twin Peaks, I think, of seeing Laura Palmer alive, seeing the impact that she had on the community that we just don't get here, except for these little bits where, oh, you knew Laura. She's dead, you know, right? Laura meant something to Mrs. Tremont. Laura meant something to Harold Smith, right? These are people who didn't have anybody else, but Laura was a beacon of light in their lives. And when we know how awful her life was, how crazy dancing on that razor's edge between the light and the dark she was, especially in the final week of her life, it's just such a fucking tragedy that we didn't get to see that, and the studio executives weren't willing to see that. They just wanted, okay, that's nice, you got a crime, give me another crime. And the cop shows that were on TV at the time were Hill Street Blues, right? Or I don't think Homicide: Life on the Street had started yet. Law and Order certainly hadn't. But so the crime procedural and the stuff that's going on here, it predates the X-Files. There's so much ground that's being broken by David Lynch and his weird, spooky FBI that we don't see pay off until much, much later in real-world chronology. So yeah, that's it.
I think Dale Cooper is a huge model for Mulder and Scully.
Absolutely.
And I would say for Mulder and Scully, because I feel like he kind of embodies both of them.
Yeah, he's the science and the heart. He's science and faith all wrapped in one.
Yeah, like if you split Dale Palmer into two people, or sorry, Dale Palmer. I keep doing that. If you split Dale Cooper into two people, you kind of get.
I think that
Mulder
when
and
you
Scully.
split David Lynch into two people, you get Dale Cooper and Laura Palmer. You get tragedy and comedy. You get agony and ecstasy. And so those are the mediums he's using to tell the story, is Laura's story in reverse and Dale's going forward. It's a little bit more mythology than we want for first impressions, but it's important. We're going to have this discussion because this episode meant something. Okay, awesome. Any more trivia for our this section?
Let's see.
This is where we look over our notes too, so I'm reviewing.
Yes, this is where we look over our notes. Yeah, I don't see any good trivia because I do want to talk about having read The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, but that is more relevant to the next episode where we were actually introduced to that.
Yes, yes, I am. We're peek behind the curtain. We're going to be recording our coverage of the next episode immediately after we do this episode today, and so this is going to be huge on our mind, and we'll probably be more culturally relevant as we get in. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to our expanded coverage.
Diane, in expanded coverage, we should talk about the greater universe and mythology of the piece. Any interesting personal takeaways, and tie the media into the greater works of the artist.
All right. So let's just dive right in here to the wackiness that is Coma and where Twin Peaks lives, because we went a little long in our first impressions because this episode was important to us. We even brought in some of the things that we would normally talk about here, like our recurring cast members, but we didn't talk about our Lynchian tropes, and they are on fucking display in this episode. They are everywhere. David Lynch has got the reins. He is driving the ship, steering the ship. He's driving the bus. We could torture that metaphor a bit more, but David Lynch is back in charge. And we are seeing David Lynch shit happen in this episode, more so than we saw in the previous one. or it was him and Mark Frost doing things. So, let us have our tropes here.
All right. Well, obviously, the first trope is, as I mentioned in our a little earlier, we get not one but two deranged oracle of a very Lynchian trope. You know, not only do we get Mrs. Tremont, but the log lady also has a narratively significant contribution to make. And I also have to say that I really, really like the scene between her and Major Briggs, because the way he treats her with a kind of respect that is, you know, speaks well of him, I suppose. But I think it also shows that he is, because of the nature of his work, he is not prepared to dismiss her out of hand, which also contrasts nicely with the opening scene, where Albert ostentatiously does not care about Tibetan mysticism.
As a Buddhist, it hurts my soul, but I do like his version of science versus Dale's version of science. Dale Cooper is a really good whatever he is. We know if he's a lawyer, a cop, or a doctor, right? We don't know how he got to the FBI, but we do know he belongs there. He belongs in the Gordon Cole Spooky Squad. And Albert also belongs in his Spooky Squad, but Albert's absolutely a man of science. And the two of them together, we talked about how this is our proto X-Files, right? What we're seeing here in Twin Peaks, that is that dynamic of science versus faith that these two men embody.
Another Lynchian trope that I want to talk about is with One-Eyed Jacks, which I think you have some other things to say. But
many thoughts about One-Eyed Jacks.
One of the ways that David Lynch likes to show, I think, sexual perversion, which is not always evil. But one of the ways he likes to show, like, so a lot of times it is associated with evil because it's associated with abuse and forcing and things like that. But he likes to, when he shows sexual perversion, he often gets very, very, very peculiar. So, you know, so the scene of sexual, you know, an obviously sexual scene where you're not necessarily getting any details on it, but like there's something weird going on is recurring, you know, constantly recurring David trope. And in this one, we get guy tied up, his toenails done, and a woman, you know, he's got a headphone, he's got a blindfold and everything, and there is a woman vacuuming in the room with him. And the vacuuming, the noise of the vacuuming is clearly a very important part of whatever scenario is going on.
Yeah.
And
the part of my bits about One-Eyed Jacks have a lot more to do with the next episode, Man Behind the Glass, than what's here. But you see, I mentioned in our finale for season 1, we talked about, Julie did a very thorough summary of the character of Blackie and some of her tragic backstory and where she got to be to where she was. But there's still that hope that something cool might happen, right? Or there's still a universe where she and Dale Cooper get together and are happy and they can leave this darkness behind. But in season 1 of this episode 1 of this series, that's gone. That's over with. We don't see redeemable Blackie. We see monster Blackie, and we only see a glimpse of monster Blackie in the first episode of the season. This is the second episode of the season. David Lynch is back in charge, and Blackie is not a good person. She is not even close to being a good person. She's not on the same highway as the one the good people use to get to work. She is a bad person, and she gets worse from here on out. It's not great for anybody else around her. And Audrey is realizing the depths of her mistake, how bad she has fucked up. Right? She's locked in her room. She is able to escape briefly to get out of there, but you know, she escapes briefly being kid detective. And we talk about kid detectives a lot, but she's being kid detective, but she's not a kid. She's 18. She's a grown-up detective making grown-up mistakes. And she makes a huge one in not escaping from One-Eyed Jacks when she had the chance. She went instead to follow, to break into some room somewhere with some random person that happened to be somebody she knows, torture that person to get information, doesn't kill him, just gets the information and threatens him because I'm Audrey Horne and I get what I want. Guess what? You're Audrey Horne, 18-year-old girl. You don't have the big swinging bleep to nail people with in this circumstance. You're screwed. And One-Eyed Jacks is a place where people end up, not a place people go to. The casino downstairs is one thing, but upstairs, where we're living right now in all these episodes, is a totally different place. It's one step away from the Black Lodge, because it's full of people who come here for a release. You need to deal with my perversion, or you need to deal with my fetishes. You need to the word vice is the one I want to get into here, but I don't want to use the negative connotations of the word vice, because sex work is not wrong. We brought this up before. Julie just alluded to it. Sex work is not wrong. Kink is not wrong. Kink is okay. It's a way for you to express the person that you are, and the person that we want to be. And we have talked at length on this on our film fest that there are no gay people in this universe that aren't inherently bad people, and that's a giant flaw of the Lynchiverse. We need that. We need those alternate expressions. We need those people who are willing to just be. I'm really hoping Albert's gay, right? Because it explains a lot of his character, that he to mask that part of himself within the FBI. He's become this misanthrope, this person who is devoid of human feeling and empathy, because if he reveals part of himself, he would just give it all away and he would not be able to function. But Blackie is not that person. Blackie is an omnisexual. She is the very definition of the predatory bisexual, which is a bad trope to have. And she is the black-hearted madam. She's not the hooker with a heart of gold. She's the black-hearted madam. That's her name, is Blackie. And she's gonna get worse before anything gets better up at One-Eyed Jacks. And where this episode leaves Audrey, abandoned, forgotten, all the way through, as Cooper is so focused not on the person who opened her heart to him and said, help me, right? Let me help you. Let me be a part of your life. And he says, you can't do this. You need to put your clothes on and get out of my bedroom. And then he takes 3 in the chest. And he never sees the letter that she wrote to him that says, I'm going to go help you. I'm going to One-Eyed Jacks. There's something bad happening there. It's still sitting under his fucking bed, and he hasn't searched his own room. He was told by the giant, there's something you've forgotten. And he has not gotten back to it. And that thing he's forgotten is Audrey fucking Horne. And as important as that person is, especially in the eyes of David Lynch, it's a great part of this episode that she has been shuffled off to the side. And the only person who seems to care even the tiniest bit about it is her dad, who's basically mentioning her over drinks as he calls the sheriff's department to order them to do his bidding, because he's a criminal mastermind and he's not a nice person. And that's great fucking television. But I know I can definitely see why it hit the way it hit in 1990, late 1990. You know, we're coming off to the end of the Bush we're in the middle of the Bush presidency, right? The elder Bush presidency, and how things are going to be going, and it's not a great time worldwide, and that stuff is going. If you are gay, if you are different, if you are deviant, and so the department store owner going there to be tied up by somebody, held upside down while someone vacuums in a room, that is awesome. That is healthy. That is a good release. It just happens that person's a piece of shit. And he is a bad person who's looking for release, which is great. That means he's not out there raping and murdering people. But he is trafficking people to be raped and murdered. He is directly responsible for the death of Laura Palmer because he sent her here. He sent her here going, oh, well, you want to make a little money. You want to do these things. He sent her there to get raped and murdered. Hooked on heroin. He's a bad person. He's a hugely monstrous person who just happens to be nice to puppies and animals. So that dichotomy of One-Eye Jacks, where good people go to release the badness in them, is awesome. But that badness is going somewhere. It's happening. And it's become that evil force that gets channeled out into the woods, which is trying to take over Twin Peaks. And that's, to me, what One-Eye Jacks represents. It is the place where the darkness comes from. It's the place where people go to be bad, and they believe they're leaving cleansed, but all they've done is trail that darkness back to town with them, and that's why the town is continually under assault. I wonder a lot how much time Hank Jennings spent up here at One-Eye Jacks. Because if he was a bookhouse boy, if he was one of these champions of light, one of these great owls who are supposed to look out over everybody, and now he's that horrible human that he is, something happened to him right there. Something happened to him while he was out patrolling against the darkness, and I gotta believe he encountered the same madness, the same evil that's slowly affecting everybody in town who's over the age of 18. And that's what One-Eye Jacks means to me, and it's going to get worse. I'll talk a lot more about One-Eye Jacks in our next episode, but that's our expanded mythology that has been through in a lot of my final thoughts for the film fest, is that monsters are real, dark places are real. If you go to dark places, you'll see dark things. And this is the place where dark things happen. One of many places, but this is where darkness is concentrated. It's up there.
Yeah, I think that idea that going too close to the darkness, you think you're going there to try to stop it or study it or whatever, but a lot of the time it just sucks you in.
Yeah, Laura Palmer's dead. That's why she's dead.
Yeah, that's a recurring trope in David Lynch, I would say, because there's no overt supernatural stuff in Blue Velvet, but that is definitely the story of the Kyle MacLachlan character in that.
Yeah,
Jeffrey Beaumont is definitely somebody who goes too close to the darkness, is almost sucked in, but it's almost like everything concludes before it happens. But in, say, the Bookhouse Boys, they go back and back, they keep going back, and it's bound to get some of them sometimes.
I'm glad you mentioned Jeffrey Beaumont, because he goes over the line. He keeps sleeping with her. He keeps sleeping with the woman whose family has been kidnapped and held hostage so that she could be raped by the bad guy. And he keeps sleeping with her, even though he's in a relationship with Laura Dern's character. And Laura Dern pulls him back to the light, but not before his darkness is exposed and the things that he's done to try and help her. I mean, essentially, he gets consensually raped, but he keeps going back, right? The first time was an accident. The second, third, and fifth times that he kept going there just to have sex with this woman, those were bad things that Jeffrey Beaumont did. And the people who keep going up to One-Eye Jacks, knowing what One-Eye Jacks is, are bad people. Like, if you go there one time to gamble and you're invited upstairs, okay, you get the pass, right? You're not a great person, but you went to a casino, there was a brothel, you had sex with somebody, and you went home. You go back up there to rape girls like Ben and Jerry Horn do, or like Leland Palmer does, or any of the Renaults, right? Those are horrible, horrible people, and they're using this place as a place to gather more darkness into themselves. I don't want to go off on a rant.
I mean, you could definitely compare it to a certain person whose files of known associates,
Which
and
is why I don't want to go off on the rant right now on February 7th.
that is a big, but I feel like David Lynch understood that world, actually.
He absolutely did. I mean, Ben Horn is on that fucking list. Absolutely. in the fictional universe version of this person's list, Ben Horn is on it because that's who Ben Horn is. Blackie O'Reilly is on that list because that's who she is. And, you know, as we've alluded to and pointed out in previous discussions, only one person has gone to jail for that supposed list. And that person wasn't the worst of the lot. The worst of the lot was much, much worse. And as more darkness comes out, that's going to be a giant, continuing, simmering pot of rage for me. And those who don't know, I am a giant rage monster. I'm one step away from hulking out at any moment. And I keep that under control. But things happen. Dark things happen. Bad things happened to me in the 90s, right? When I mentioned I was doing other things, I was in a really dark place. And Twin Peaks might have helped me to get out of that. But David Lynch certainly did, as I got into the works of David Lynch going forward. So that's my sad story. The tragedy of me. Tragedy of idiots with microphones. Yeah. Many more tropes of note. We're going to talk about the barbershop. So that's
the barbershop quartet.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
our
that's
retro pastiche. Is that barbershop quartets exist?
That's a David Lynch trope. Definitely is to deliberate hearkening of like old timey stuff. Yes, the I still and also everybody's smoking.
Everybody is smoking. It is nonstop.
I mean,
I smoked.
People did smoke a lot more in the 90s, but definitely David Lynch put smoking in to his movies. He takes a special care with it, I guess you would say.
I still have a scar on this finger of this hand from a broken ashtray that I cleaned up while I was working in a restaurant. Right, the ashtray broke in my hands because you had to go and clean the tables, wipe them down, and take the ashtrays and replace the ashtray with another ashtray. This was a restaurant in the middle of a fucking Kmart, if you can understand that, right? That's how prevalent smoking was. You would go back to this, you would go outside to smoke, or you would come inside to smoke, but you still smoked, no matter what, because it was just what you did. And so I smoked a lot in the time period that Twin Peaks was smoking. My parents had smoked my entire life, and the world without smoking now is a much better place, but I'm still suffering from repercussions, and a lot of other people are as we get older. David Lynch certainly died of smoking. Dave. But he was smoking right up to the end, because at that point, why bother? You've already got cancer. You're not going to get better.
And nicotine is remarkably addictive.
Fantastic drug. I want a cigarette right now. I really do. Because smoking was awesome.
I have never smoked, but I have known many people who did.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's what I can tell you is I know from is that secondhand when you've watched it happen?
No, it's personal experience, because you and I are talking about the same person in our brains right now, and that person got hooked on nicotine way too early, and it shaped their life in negative ways. It happened a lot. And to see it on screen here, especially Donna. Donna is trying to get closer to Laura Palmer, and she's doing Laura Palmer things like smoking cigarettes and wearing her clothes and sunglasses and going around and making her rounds. And in this episode, she runs into one of the bits of darkness, several of the bits of darkness that were in Laura's life going forward. I mean, it's nice that James Hurley is absolved of guilt in this episode, and he's set free, and he's not a person of interest anymore, but he's still on this side of that line. He's on the, I'll put my hands over here. This is the side that's away from Dave. He's on this side of the line right now. He's still on the light. He's still a bookhouse boy. He's still fighting the good fight. Donna doesn't know about the bookhouse boys. Donna doesn't know that there are people fighting against this darkness. She just knows that her friend is dead. She's grieving for her friend and trying to understand why. And so stepping into her shoes and doing these things is that. And it's certainly happening to Maddie, right? We see Maddie getting just as crazy as Sarah, seeing visions of Bob coming for her because Bob is coming for her, right? Bob's coming for everybody in that family because that's who Bob is. And I thought Leland's admonition of, I know this person. I thought he was going to say something very important about Bob. But then he takes a pause. This person lived in the woods near my grandparents' house. It's like, did he now? Is that why you know Bob?
That was actually an interesting thing, an interesting element, because given the nature of Bob, it is possible that Leland is actually telling the truth.
He could, yeah. But he also could have, that might be where he met Sarah, right? On trips up to his grandparents. We don't know how they got through. Well, we kind of do. It's in the wikis anywhere. But on screen, we just know that they've been together for a long time, at least 20 years, right? Because he's always been Uncle Leland to Maddie. And so he knew about Maddie. Maddie was part of their lives before Laura was born, and it's been part of their lives continually since then. So he's definitely tied into that family and been around that family. And maybe, when he talks about being as a boy, he's talking about being 14, 15 years old instead of being 8 years old. But he has a very personal relationship with Bob now, and he's going around it. And he goes to the sheriff's, right? He does this one human thing that might be great for him. It goes to the sheriff's. It's like, I know this person. But he doesn't say, this is the person that my wife saw. Or they already know, right? Because the sketch happens because Andy did the sketch, not Hawk, but Andy did the sketch in our canonical US version of Bob based on Sarah Palmer's description. Why didn't he fucking say something then? Why didn't he say this exact thing in season 1, where the very same portrait, the very same poster, seen out of context at the Great Northern, sends him into, I know that guy. So of course you know that guy. You were there when that picture was drawn. But, where is the schism between season 1 Leland and season 2 Leland that made his hair go white, right? What happened to him to erase his memory of the time after Laura's death? Because now he says, no, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling so much better. I'm better, and I'm back in action. And he's doing bad things and not being a smart person. And the horns
he's notably...
he's been hit with the idiot stick.
Well, I was just going to say that Leland is notably less insane this episode than the previous episode.
Yeah.
Is another thing I noticed.
Yeah. He's
like...
I don't know. There's so much going on, right? As the Lynchiverse opens up and expands, our expanded coverage of the expanding Lynchiverse, and just reviewing our Wikipedia summary and our thoughts, right? When Audrey is torturing her boss at the department store, Mr. Emery, he reveals to her who owns One Eye Jacks, which she knew. She just needs somebody to say it out loud. Your father owns One Eye Jacks. Your father comes and does this. And at that moment, Audrey knows what happened to Laura Palmer. Laura came here. Her father raped him. Her father raped Laura, and now Laura is dead. And she knows these facts, and she needs to escape and get out there. But she's still trying to be Mrs. Dale Cooper. She's still trying to be an effective partner to Dale, so she stays behind. She's sacrificing herself, even though that she doesn't know that's what she's doing, because she doesn't have the emotional vocabulary to understand what this sacrifice will entail. But she's trying to fight this darkness. She's on this side of the line, and this side, she's vacillating back and forth the same way that Donna is, and that James isn't. So I feel that's an unfair characterization of women, because they are not being shown as good people so far in Twin Peaks. They're shown as being inherently evil, or unless you're Donna's mom, who's a saint, they're shown as being flawed unless they're children, and I don't like that. It's part of my recurring distaste for One Eye Jacks, because almost everyone there is a willing participant. Almost everyone. They know what's going on, and they're still doing it. Something just occurred to me. I need to talk about. Oh yeah, we should talk about Renette Plasky. Freaking the fuck out, because she had a vision of Bob, or specifically, she had a memory of Bob killing Laura at the night of her murder. We see it through her eyes at the end of the last episode. And in this episode, we're seeing her desperately trying to escape from things that she knows, but also knowing that if she stays in this hospital, Bob is going to kill her. And she doesn't have the literal vocabulary to say this because it's been stolen from her. Something is missing from Renette Pulaski. Something was taken by Bob. It was taken by the darkness and by One-Eye Jax. And it's going to play out some more, I think, as we go forward, especially now that Albert's back in town.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made, is that about the role of women in the Twin Peaks universe, is that there's definitely there's a heroic role that a handful of the men, not most of the men, but a handful of the men, you know, Cooper, Hawk, Andy, I'll give Andy the credit. There's a heroic role that the men are able to occupy, that the women are not able to occupy. And when they try, it usually goes wrong. Because actually, you can see both Audrey infiltrating One-Eye Jax and Donna taking over Laura's Meals on Wheels. They are trying to occupy that heroic role, that more heroic role. Like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find out who killed Laura. We're going to, you know, bring justice. And instead of bringing justice, they just get sucked into the badness.
Yeah. They're damseled. And I want more. I want more, Dave. Don't damsel these important people. And I rail against Annie Blackburn a lot because she stole justice for Aubrey. Again, justice for Aubrey. She stole Aubrey's lines. She stole Aubrey's part. What Audrey would have grown into being. But she's the only one who comes to us without darkness and leaves without the darkness. And we got to wait for Annie. We got to wait for that character to be introduced. We're stuck down here in the pit right now, waiting for Audrey to get rescued because clearly she's not going to do it herself. Let's talk about Lucy and Andy. All right. And I want to talk about Andy's introduction into this episode, where Andy is apparently so stupid he can't operate a tape dispenser.
Yes.
He can't operate a fucking tape dispenser. A 3-year-old can get tape out of that dispenser and tape stuff all the way through there. But he's like the guy, you know, taping his nose to his head, right? And he can't figure out how to put a poster on a window. And he's got tape all over himself trying to do this. Ask for fucking help, right? Go ask someone to help you with the tape to get this done. But if that's truly who Andy is, Andy was actually a good cop in the episode before this. And now he's not. He's doesn't have an ally in the writer's room in Harley Payton. And when we get to his revelation, when he grows a spine and he goes and he talks to Lucy and says, I had myself tested. I can't have kids. I wanted to have kids with you and I went to make sure that I could and I can't. Why are you pregnant? And Lucy can't tell him. She's not able to tell him why she's pregnant and why it's kind of a shock to Andy as things go forward. And we're going to get more into this as the season goes on. But this is a really bad side to Lucy that is not adequately explained in this episode. And I want to stress this point. It's not explained in this episode. And so as our coverage expands, Lucy's role will expand, but she is a really shitty person to Andy right now, right? Even if she had said, I want to tell you, but I can't, or I can't talk about this right now. But she says nothing. He's bearing his soul to her and trying to be a good man, but he's been hurt. He's been heartbroken, first by her rejection of him and being iced out, at the end of season 1, and now the revelation that she is pregnant and won't talk to him about it is killing him, is eating him up from inside, and he's teetering towards that edge, but he's still solidly on the side of good. Remember, Andy is not a bookhouse boy. He's just a good, honest cop. He doesn't know about the darkness. He doesn't know about things that are going on, and when he's confronted with the evil in the world, he breaks down crying and weeping because it's too much for him. He's a gentle soul. She is not being good to Andy. She is not an effective partner, and it's not great, the look that she's giving. She's an amazing actress, and it's an amazing part. But Lucy is a bad person in this episode, even though we know she's not a bad person. She's just doing bad things to Andy and the people around her, because she hasn't told the sheriff. She hasn't told Dale Cooper. The only person she's told is Andy.
It actually, the way this plays out, it really does. It's one of those soap opera things that plays out like a soap opera thing, where they were like, Lucy has a secret. What is it? You know, where it didn't feel like they didn't think about it in terms of Lucy as a character. How would she act? You know, it's not character driven.
She's almost a
like,
sexy
what would this
lampshade
character
here.
do?
You could tape her lines to the lampshade, and Andy could be reacting to that instead.
Yeah, so it definitely feels like they wanted, it felt like they built the tension first and then figured out what would fill it, as opposed to thinking about how the characters would react and then building it from there. That's my feeling, is that and that's actually a problem with some of the, especially the, I think, secondary characters in Twin Peaks, is that some of the stuff that happens to them feels like, oh yes, that's very satisfying. That's based on the character, and other things that happen to them are kind of like, you just pulled that one out of a hat, didn't you? You know, you just reached into the soap opera bag of tropes, not the Twin Peaks bag of tropes, but the soap opera, generic soap opera bag of tropes, and pulled that one out.
Yeah, what does Norma have, like 2 lines in this episode, and none of them are with Ed, right? And so last episode we had the tragedy of Ed and Nadine, but this episode, you know, Norma just is basically handing food off to people. She's back to running the diner. This is my role now. This is who I am. I'm not the important person that I actually am in Twin Peaks, because she is an important person in Twin Peaks. She's our one female stalwart role model, right? She's done nothing wrong ever, except for, you know, cheating on Hank with Ed, but she doesn't love Hank. She loves Ed, and always has. So we should follow that love, but at the same time, they're breaking their bonds of matrimony, which I am not saying anything bad about, right? But in the lens of history and how our culture viewed that sort of thing, if you had an affair, you were a bad person. And that's always heaped upon the woman and not the man. And the women are the ones suffering for these affairs, not the men. Ed suffers no consequences whatsoever for cheating on Nadine with Norma. Leo sleeps around nonstop. Bobby suffers no consequences for sleeping with Leo's wife. Now, Leo got shot in the head, which should have happened, but he got shot in the head by Norma's husband, not by Bobby, which would have been far more satisfying. Or even Major Briggs. Fuck, Major Briggs just shoot Leo straight in the head, and he would have shot him in the heart afterwards. He wouldn't have left anything behind. He could take care of business.
Would have gotten that double tap.
Double tap. He's trained. Specifically trained. Or he'd have the aliens do it. Who knows? Blackie certainly would have shot Leo dead. In fact, Blackie probably was raped by Leo multiple times. So she wouldn't have any problems doing that and not suffering any consequences, because she's already damned to hell in her own eyes and acting in such a fashion. So that's just this simmering misogyny growing and growing and growing, is bugging the shit out of me. And that's part and parcel with my dislike for One-Eyed Jacks, because it's a place where you go to abuse women. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
And I do think that in the abuse is shown, I mean, it's part of how people are marked as villains.
Yeah.
It's part of how people are marked as evil. So it doesn't bother me the same way it does in fiction, where it's treated as no big deal or as humorous. But it is something that happens a lot.
Yeah.
In And I would say it happens a lot in Twin Peaks and in David Lynch in general. I think David Lynch is very, as an artist, he's very concerned with the ways people are shitty to each other, like the ways they abuse people, the terrible things they do. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Dorothy Valance is horrifically abused by Frank Booth and not treated great by Jeffrey Beaumont or society in general. But she is never portrayed positively, even with her love for her family. Uh, Lula in Wild at Heart is portrayed positively. She is not. Sailor defending her from actual abuse is sent to prison. And every time that Sailor tries to help Lula get away from stuff, she gets deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of these people are coming to abuse me. They're doing horrible things to me. And she keeps her soul in a way that many of these Twin Peaks characters are not keeping their soul. And her love, her brightness, that shining flame is what brings Sailor back to the light, stops him from dying, literally stops him from dying, sends a fairy and angel to save him. And we know David is possible of viewing love in this fashion, possible of viewing women in this fashion, possibly of viewing consequences in this fashion, because we just watched Wild at Heart, right? And we know that he was so drawn to that story that he stopped doing Twin Peaks to go do Wild at Heart because that story meant something to him. So damn it, Dave, show us that. Show us that here. Show us that that really means something to you and put it in fucking Twin Peaks because that's where it belongs. It belongs in this auteur's, your creator-owned place where you can be the creator. Give us that thing that made Wild at Heart awesome or Blue Velvet awesome, and it's just missing. And I love this episode. I've said this many times. I really, really like this episode. I think it's Twin Peaks in a nutshell. Season 2 of Twin Peaks in a nutshell is here in Coma. It's going to get far worse for all the characters involved as we go on throughout the season. But this is what I think about when I think about Twin Peaks Season 2, is these first few episodes directed by David Lynch. And as an adult, as a hard-bitten commentator, there's some giant flaws in this narrative that need to be called out. That may be my final thoughts, but here we are in expanded coverage, pointing at the misogyny, pointing at how awful it is that none of these men suffer consequences except for the ones who get shot or strangled. Because fuck Jacques Renault, fuck Leo, those are bad people. Fuck Bobby for that matter. He's still not on my happy list. And I'm glad that he isn't a very strong presence in this episode. But when he is in this episode, he's basically slut shaming his girlfriend into committing insurance fraud and actual abuse upon her abuser. Right? It's not we could take this money and leave and go do whatever we want. It's let's tie Leo up in the corner and throw food at him every so often so we can cash his disability check and then do whatever the fuck we want. That's a child's thinking. That's a child in a man's body doing childish shit, and it's evil shit. It's not great. All the hope that we had for Bobby's redemption is fucking gone by the end of this episode because
although to be,
Go ahead.
I was going to say to be entirely honest, I do understand why it would be appealing. Why the idea of abusing Leo in that way would be appealing to Shelley as revenge, like. You know.
Right, but
anyway.
she wants to leave, right? The whole point of being with Bobby is I can leave Leo and I can get away, and when we get enough money, we can leave, and they can leave right now. They can walk out of the hospital and disappear, and everything improves for both of them. They're both adults, right? They can just leave. He could drop out of school and go, and they'll be fine. Nope, I want Leo's money. Nope, I want to keep dealing cocaine, which is what he's actually saying. Is I want to keep dealing cocaine and taking Leo's money and living in his house and sleeping with his wife. I want to do those things. I want Leo's life, not my life. I want Leo's life specifically. And if it means tying Leo up in the corner and throwing peanuts at him every so often, yeah, I'm doing that. It's okay. You're going to get caught, Bobby. You're going to get caught. Your father, when he finds out about this, when your dad finds out about this, ooh, are you in trouble? But, yeah. Yeah, Hank Jennings is certainly going to find out about it because Hank Jennings wants Leo's money too. and he's far more likely to get it because he's far more willing to shoot people in the head.
Oh, also, the scene with Bobby and Shelley had one funny kind of meta commentary, because they're in the car and we hear Angela Badalamenti's theme.
Yep.
And then one of them says, "Why don't you change the station?" And they changed the station to like a blues song, which implies that that was not incidental music we were hearing, that we were hearing Angela Badalamenti over the radio. Which is, I mean, it's the first, and I'm pretty sure it's the last time it's implied that the Twin Peaks soundtrack is something that somebody. Oh wait, no. There's also Audrey Horne puts it
Audrey's
on
Dance.
the jukebox.
Yeah.
Yeah, Audrey's Dance on the jukebox. But yeah, so
Now I'm thinking, I'm watching her dance in my head.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So we ready to move on to our final thoughts?
Yes.
Okay. Now we'll nod again in synchronicity.
Diane, my final thoughts. We should share the important things we want people to take away from this week's show.
All right, Julie, what's our biggest takeaway about this episode for you?
For me, I think the first episode, it has a lot of good. The first episode of season 2 had some things in it that I really like, but it felt very much like it was kind of just reminding us of stuff that happened in season 1. This episode is much better at getting us geared up for season 2, introducing new storylines, introducing new conflicts, that sort of thing. So I agree with you that this episode ends up being more satisfying than the previous one. And I have 2 weird little notes, in addition to my everybody's wearing this bright orange lipstick, everybody's wearing these giant 80s sweaters. Dale Cooper's hair is so black in this episode. It's so black and shiny. I just kept staring at it and thinking, okay, does it always look like that? Anyway.
I think in the break between things that he got a different haircut. And
yeah.
It in general, but I also think it's intentional. I think that they are focusing on his wholesomeness and his look in opposition to Leland's descent. And so Leland's hair got stark white. Dale takes 3 in the chest, but Dale's okay and Leland's not.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, just completely off the wall, I probably should have mentioned it in expanded coverage because it's almost like a trope, but it's only a Twin Peaks trope. It's not a generalized David Lynch trope. Is Jerry Horn eating weird stuff? And so whenever he mentions like some kind of strange food item, I've looked up the food items, and none of them are real. Like none of them they're all made up. They're not like, oh, this is a real, European dish. It's like, no, they're not. And in this episode, we get smoked cheese pig.
Yeah.
Oh, we also get in the scene where we find out that Hank used to be a bookhouse boy. We get Hank staring at a head on the wall, and and underneath it, "The buck stopped here," which is a little cheesy. Actually, I don't want to blame Sheriff Truman for that. I assume that that's been there for decades. That's my but also something I wrote down and just underlined it, several things. Audrey's been missing for 2 days and he just now noticed.
Yeah. I mean, literally, the last conversation he had with her, and Horn's a horrible person, is her demanding, I want to be part of things. I want to be an adult. I want to do stuff. put me to work at the department store. And that's the last time he talked to her, is he sent her off to the department store. And when she got there, she told the bad guy, put me on the perfume counter. I said, no, your father wants you to do this. He says, no, I want you to put me on the perfume counter. And so Ben would know, I'd like to think that Ben would never knowingly send his daughter to the perfume counter to be groomed and drafted and recruited into One-Eyed Jacks. But in the long run, he threatened to send her to a nunnery in Europe to get her away from, get out of his life, right? I don't want to fucking deal with you anymore. And so, yeah, it took him 2 days to realize, I haven't seen my daughter in a while. I should probably order someone to find her. Like, why doesn't he send fucking Jerry to find her? Right? Jerry gets shit done. Jerry's the fixer. Or Leland. Leland is the person he relies on to do stuff. He's like, no, I'm just called the sheriff's department. They'll do that for me. I'm rich.
I mean, alternate explanation, he doesn't trust either of those guys to find his daughter.
True, yeah. But does he doesn't love his daughter. He doesn't care about his daughter. He cares more about his weirdo son, whom we have not seen at all in season 2. We haven't seen his wife in season 2 at all.
We haven't seen.
It might as well not exist. The whole entire Horn family could be Jerry, Ben, and Audrey. And Laura was an important part of their lives. She was the light. And she dropped in and sat with her brother. That's why Audrey is drawn into all this, wants to get justice for Laura. Justice for Laura. Yeah, those are bad things. Those are important takeaways from this episode, too. Is people don't care enough about Audrey Horn. Especially Dale fucking Cooper and Ben Horn, who should care a lot about it. And luckily, that's probably going to change very soon. All right, so I alluded to this in X-Men coverage, but monsters are real. Monsters should be fought. That's the whole point of the Bookhouse Boys. Monsters are real. Monsters should be fought. We see monsters in this episode. We see very bad people doing very bad things. But other than Bob, they are just bad people. And seeing Bob come at you over that couch is terrifying. I would shit myself if that happened, right? I couldn't respond appropriately to a man appearing out of nowhere, jumping at me and doing crazy stuff, especially with the fear aura that seems to surround Bob that paralyzes people, especially women, and makes them scream and just tremble as he approaches. So there are Bobs out there, and there are people who can appear out of nowhere and take you away and drop you in a brothel or a nunnery, which are effectively equated in Ben Horn's mind. And the dark places
and
exist.
Shakespeare, too.
And Shakespeare, yeah. Get thee to a nunnery. Right? What he's actually saying there is, yeah, get out of my face. I don't have to deal with you. Horrible patriarchy. Down with the patriarchy. Down with secret lists. A simmering ball of rage that I am. Okay. Yeah, fight the darkness. Strike out. Be who you... And another takeaway of this, I mentioned earlier, is that if there's a part of you that you can't express, find a way to express it. Coming out was very important to me. I'm choking up thinking about coming out. It was very important to me to admit to other people who I am, what I want out of life, and to be that person and live my own life. Live your own life. Be that person. Just don't hurt people. Don't hurt people if you can avoid it. I did a lot of bad stuff. Not monstrous stuff, not Ben Horn level shit, but the 90s were not a great time for me, and I'm glad I made it out alive. But I wouldn't have if I hadn't been able to admit who I am. So be that person. Be the person that you are. And show the world. All right, on that happy note, what's next for us, Julie?
Well, next time, we're going to keep on going with Twin Peaks.
That's right. Our next episode is The Man Behind the Glass, otherwise known as episode 1. Episode 10, rather. It's the third episode of Twin Peaks Season 2. If all these numbers are confusing, you're right. They are very confusing, which is why we've gone to just referring to the episode title from the German release in 1993. So this episode is Coma. Next episode will be The Man Behind the Glass, where we will get deeper into the story of Dale Cooper and the reasons why Dale Cooper is where he is, not who he is, but where he is. So I'm really looking forward to that discussion. Julie, where can people find you online?
Well, I am McJulie most places, and I am at gothhouse.org is my home website, and I can also my books can also be found at RS Entertainment.
That's right. You can also find them on
Website.
Amazon, but if you get them from RS Entertainment, Julie gets more money.
That's right.
Which we like. We like money.
And you can avoid giving money to Amazon, which many people would prefer to do if it's at all possible.
Entirely true. If you want to get involved in our discussions and our talk about David Lynch Film Festival, or if you just want to leave us a comment about the show in general, please like, subscribe on whatever platform you're seeing this or listening to this as we go forward. I am the Idiot with a Microphone here, RS Entertainment. These are the things you can search for, rsentertainment.com. I'll go into in just a moment and have pre-recorded spiel after this. But you can also find us on Facebook, Blue Sky. Definitely, we're both on Blue Sky, and we post our episode summaries, but also we're willing to talk about them there, right? And if you have comments that you want to see and cover, I know we probably won't get to them for a bit of time as our recording schedule progresses, but we are very interested in hearing what you have to think and what you would want out of the David Lynch Film Festival. So thank you very much for listening and watching and being with us. I am Scott James Magner, the Idiot with a Microphone, and I am signing off.
Okay.
Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to support the stream, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you happen to watch it. But also, consider buying some books. rsentertainment.com is a progressive publisher that focuses on independent authors and the stories that they tell. We have a curated selection of novels in science fiction, fantasy, high fantasy, space opera, horror, just about any genre that we believe needs some support, and the authors that need to do so as well. You can find this website by using this QR code or by typing rsentertainment.com into your browser and head over to our shop where you can get a free book written by me, Scott James Magner, called Homefront. Homefront is my 2014 science fiction novel, which I've later expanded into the Homefront trilogy of Invasion, Landfall, and Beachhead. But to get a sample, just go here, select the ebook, and you see it's $0. Free book delivered to you, your email. All you have to do is sign up for our mailing. That's it. That's all you need to do. Thank you very much for supporting us here at the Idiot with a Microphone channel, and we'll see you soon.